Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and I hope this video finds you well. As someone who has a primary focus on RPGs with their personal YouTube channel, I wanted to bring a conversation to you fine folks as we wait for a brand new PlayStation 5 reveal event date. The question today is, what makes a good RPG? To start this talk, I'd like to look into exactly what these types of games are. As I kept rewriting what a RPG was, I realized that this was my own definition based off what I value in these types of games. This is due to the RPG genre becoming so broad that it truly is what you make of it, boiling down to personal preference. For me, the true first role-playing game I can commit to memory that I replayed over and over again was Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. The very game that made Star Wars at all appealing to me and the beginning of my love of what I called as a kid, quote, choose your own adventure games, end quote. Such innocent times. Anyway, Knights of the Old Republic boasted remarkable choice and consequence, flexible gameplay systems for unique builds, and multiple endings, which was all pretty shocking for its time. However, that is only one kind of RPG. I know the RPG genre has become slightly diluted over time. With no disrespect intended, we can take a gander at the likes of Ubisoft's Far Cry series, which they happily claim is a role-playing game because of the addition of a skill tree and nothing more. A skill tree that with time you could easily complete and miss out on absolutely nothing based on your choices. But does this make it any less of a role-playing game because of that? For me, I enjoy the likes of Divinity Original Sin 2, Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect, and Vampire. There is one commonality amongst all these games, and it's that the choices you make in the story have true ramifications that you can feel, and it starts to wall you off from other content, thus incentivizing you to replay the game. But Divinity Original Sin 2 is an isometric RPG, and while the choices may be fun, some understandably can't move past being that far from the action. The beauty is that the genre is accommodating, because on the other end of the spectrum, you have games that focus mostly on its gameplay systems. Take a gander at Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, a title that recently received an announcement of a remaster on the way. This is a game that may not bring earth-shattering results to the choices you make between various factions and people, but you can bet that each time you play through the game, it'll be different. This is thanks to the Destiny system, plus its wide range of skills that are categorized into 3 sections: finesse, might, and sorcery. You could be a battle mage wielding a staff and a warhammer when things get too close for comfort, or go all in on finesse to be a stealthy rogue capable of dealing tons of critical damage. That Destiny system I mentioned will fortify your build, giving you unique buffs based on how many skill points you have slotted in certain skills. Nioh 2, a game I dedicated a 20+ minute video to here on SideQuest, boasts tons of weapons and levels of proficiency you could reach with each weapon type. As that proficiency rises, you receive skill points that can be spent on skills unique to that weapon. I can play the role of a patient samurai, a Kusarigama wielding ninja, and so on. Point being is that choice doesn't have to be exclusive to the story for it to be impactful or lead to replayability. To some, role-playing is best saved for the tabletop with the likes of Dungeons & Dragons as well as various other board games. Truth be told, this isn't my point of expertise as I have not played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, but pen and paper is truly where all of this began, and where gameplay systems such as my beloved KOTOR were built from. And don't get me wrong, JRPGs also have this conundrum of what side of the definition do you take? I found this really interesting Reddit thread that I'd like to highlight here titled, "What is a JRPG?" saying there are basically 2 schools of thought and what is meant by JRPG. The first is the literal minded, a JRPG is a role-playing game that was made in Japan. Meanwhile, the second is more liberally minded. A JRPG is an RPG that is informed by the design of games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. And I feel like either wouldn't be incorrect, but more and more we're seeing those shackles of the liberally minded JRPGs being broken. Take a look at Persona 5 Royal. That was inspired by itself, man. That just kept building and building on what Persona was and making it accessible to everybody. But sometimes you see what is now considered Western elements of an RPG, such as choice and consequence, in older JRPGs. I mean, we can't forget the likes of Chrono Trigger, which has 13 endings. Meanwhile, you could slot Dark Souls and Dragon's Dogma from this same Reddit thread into the category of RPGs that are more mindful of their gameplay rather than choice and consequence. It is, as I said before, really what side of the definition you want to take and what you align with most and how you support it with the games that you play. But that doesn't make anyone right or wrong. I value being able to insert myself into a game above all else. The beauty of video games is that it's an interactive medium, and being able to control the outcome of a story or how I play the game is wildly more appealing than anything an action-adventure game could throw my way. With all of that in mind, rerouting back to my Ubisoft example, a lot of people don't prefer the incredibly deep cuts that some RPGs bring. Simple is good, and I agree with that notion as well. Sometimes I just want the game to come to me, not me to dig through and sift through everything. Also, games like Far Cry, where you can customize your skills, can serve as a gateway to more experiences that people otherwise wouldn't have. They serve a vital purpose, even if from the outside looking in, they dilute what the genre started as and what it is now. But the real kicker here is that a lot of games are something with RPG elements, whether it be a shooter or an action-adventure game with RPG elements. I know it's merely anecdotal evidence, but the amount of times I've received comments personally where I say, hey, this game has RPG elements because it has a skill tree, and people scoff at that saying, that's not a role-playing game. It's insurmountable, and that's how we can wrap it also back to how I said the term RPG has been a bit diluted over the years, but also it's become far more accessible. So you may have realized we didn't come to a conclusion in this video on what a role-playing game is. I think there are certain qualifications there, but it is such a broad term, and I think in a lot of ways, it's based on preference. So I hope you guys found this video thought-provoking. What is a role-playing game to you? Is it one that you insert yourself into? Is it one where you customize your skills? Is it one where every time you come back, the way you play it is different? Or perhaps there is something I overlooked? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm looking forward to reading this, as this is a discussion I've wanted to have for a while, and I'll talk with all of you soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.